The world's most fearsome fighting team made their television debut in 1987, and 30 years later, the Turtle Boys are still taking this country by storm. Nickelodeon obtained the rights from the original creators back in 2009, and the studio released an all-new animated series in 2012, which so far has been one shell of a show. I'm Adrian with channel Frederator, and today we'll be taking a look at the iconic heroes in a half shell, from their very beginnings to their current Nickelodeon reboot. This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, then versus now. We hope you're ready to be shell-shocked over the awesome power that is Turtle Power. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In 1983, two struggling artists, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, drew a sketch of a turtle in ninja attire. They kept building into the image until finally the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were officially created. After a while, Kevin and Peter sought out to make toys based off their newfound cult comic sensation. So they met with Playmates Toys, who requested that they first gauge interest from viewers with a 5-part miniseries, which was sold into syndication for Saturday morning cartoons in 1987 before it was picked up by CBS in 1990. Just like that, the 1987 cartoon was born. The show was an impressive run of 10 seasons with a total of 193 episodes, and that's no easy feat for a Saturday morning cartoon, although it did deviate significantly from the original Mirage comic series. It's geared more towards a younger audience while still telling the story of 4 teenage mutant brothers and their adopted sensei/father living and training together in the sewers. If you know the old Turtle tunes, then you know it was chock full of hilarious pop culture references and comic relief, such as Raph's constant sarcasm and references to old films like Casablanca, Wizard of Oz, and The Three Stooges. There's also plenty of self-aware humor over the fact that they're turtles, and who can forget the side of light violence? I mean, they were ninjas after all. Besides, humanoid turtles were the least of your worries in that city. There were aliens, mutants, cyborgs, street gangs, ninja clans, and even old ladies with guns. Jeez, New York really is dangerous. In 2003, the Turtles returned to their Saturday morning time slot with an all-new action-packed revival of the series. This time, the characters were far more reminiscent of their comic book counterparts, following the much darker, grittier versions of themselves. As a result, the series took on a much more serious tone than the 80s predecessor, including less slapstick humor and less puns. And although the pop culture references were as strong as ever, the surfer slang was cut back to almost none. This also marked the first time that magic was used within the series, as well as the portrayal of the Ninja Turtles having a much deeper family bond beyond ninjutsu, referring to each other as brothers more often and calling Splinter father over master. The 2012 reboot introduces the Turtleverse, with yet another clean slate while still hitting all the major plot points. It used a hybrid of the 80s storyline and the Mirage comic storyline to form a plot unique to the series, and unlike previous versions of the franchise, they show us how it all began, starting with the Turtles' first slice of pizza. Before that, they were eating algae and worms, which is a perfect example of self-aware humor that they maintained, but it also really explains why those guys love pizza so much. Anything is better than algae and worms. Many fans rejoice over the fact that the Turtles weren't afraid of using their weapons in the new version. Of course, it's mostly robots and aliens that they're up against, but now they really choreograph those fight scenes. There's far more focus on ninja fighting skills and ninja culture as a whole in the new version than ever before. That includes intense training scenes, which was lost in the original cartoon. Animation and art direction. Right away, you'll notice the 2012 series has a new unique visual style. It's hard not to notice because the Turtles are now done in CG animation versus the old cell animation styles of the 80s and 90s. The reboot received some criticism for its unpolished aesthetic, as many viewers claimed the animation seemed rather crude, but if you notice, the art direction steered more towards the jagged visual stylings of the original comic book. From the matte painted backgrounds to the storyboard-esque flashbacks, it's a fun, inspiring change-up with a nod to the Turtles' roots in paper and ink. Another remarkable first for the franchise is that you can actually tell which turtle is which, even without the colored masks. They each have their own distinguishable characteristics beyond specific skin tone, such as battle marks, different facial features, and even specific eye color. There's also more Japanese anime influences present, which of course plays into the overall theme, you know, since ninjas hail from Japan and all. So now, in using anime influences, the Turtles' expressions are extremely exaggerated, using techniques such as fixed iconography to shorthand certain moods. They also added neat little motion symbols around movements, which is something right out of the comic book. This of course varies from the 2003 rendition of the Turtles, who were actually drawn and animated with an authentic Japanese anime feel to the entire cartoon. This was also the biggest rendition of the Turtles, turning them from 4 to 5 foot mini ninjas to massive ninjas towering over most others. It was also the first animated series to introduce more of a comic book illustrated background, technically beating out the newest reboot, although Nickelodeon uses a variety of visual art stylings, giving it a refreshing, inconsistently consistent vibe to distinguish it apart from the rest of the franchise. franchise, Turtle Origins. The origin stories between the classic, the 2003 cartoon, and the newest reboot remain similar, but there are still some notable differences. So let's start with the origin of the turtles specifically. In the 1987 cartoon, the turtles were pets of some unnamed kid who just purchased them, tripped and dropped the turtles into the city sewer drain. There they were found by Hamato Yoshi, a banished ninja master who adopted them as his own. Why was Hamato at the sewer at this time? We'll get back to that. Well, one day Hamato had returned to his home in the sewer to find his new friends covered in mysterious ooze. Quickly he cleaned them off, only to discover the ooze was a powerful mutagen capable of transforming whoever touched it into the animal they had most recently been in contact with. And so the turtles took on Yoshi's human form. As for Hamato Yoshi, he had most recently been in contact with the sewer rats, and so he took on a humanoid rat form and gained the nickname Splinter from his turtles, who he then raised as his adopted sons. Naturally, he taught them the way of the ninja because, why not? It can only help if you're a mutant. As for the 2012 reboot, the elements remained the same, they're just switched around. So instead of involving some random kid in the backstory, it was Hamato Yoshi who purchased the turtles. He was on his way home when he witnessed a seedy exchange in a dark hallway involving the mutagen and members of the Krang army. During the altercation, Hamato Yoshi and the turtles were hit with the mutagen, causing them to transform, at which point Hamato took the turtles and hid underground. In this storyline, the turtles were not immediately transformed into teenagers, but were raised by Master Splinter since infancy until their 15th birthday, when they were allowed to visit the surface. The 2003 revival stuck to the Mirage comic roots and therefore touches on aspects of the original story, which is somewhat of a hybrid between the newest and oldest animated series. The biggest change was that in this version, Splinter was the pet of Hamato Yoshi rather than the man himself, and he learned ninjutsu by studying his master's training. The rest of the story remained similar, except that it was an accident involving a TCRI truck that caused the kid to drop his turtles and the ooze to fall into the sewer. Arch enemies, the story of Hamato Yoshi and Orokusaki. So now let's talk about the origins of Shredder and Splinter, and the reasoning behind their blood feud. The story takes place in Japan, where an honorable ninja master named Hamato Yoshi taught members of the Foot Clan. Orokisaki was a power-hungry student of Hamato Yoshi who resented his master's teachings. He quickly formed a group to usurp Yoshi, resulting in his being banished from the clan. Ashamed, Yoshi fled to New York without a penny to his name. Completely homeless, he was forced to live in the sewer for shelter, where he befriended many of the rats. See, we told you there was an explanation. Orokisaki took over the Foot Clan and turned them into a crime syndicate. He eventually traveled to New York in search of Hamato Yoshi, hoping to destroy him once and for all. However, the rivalry between the two is rooted in a much darker history for the 2012 reboot. Orokisaki and Hamato Yoshi were friends in Japan, but coming from rival clans, the Hamato clan and the Foot. The Hamato clan defeated the Foot and adopted young Orokisaki, where he was raised alongside Yoshi. The two were raised as brothers, but their relationship soured over the love of a woman named Tang Shen, and in a jealous rage, a battle commenced which resulted in the deaths of Yoshi's beloved wife, Tang Shen, and his daughter, Miwa. Afterwards, he fled to New York in exile for many years until Orokisaki, now deemed the Shredder, learned of his presence in America and traveled to New York to finish what he started. There's also the addition of Shredder's adopted daughter, who was later revealed to be Miwa, Yoshi's daughter, who he had thought to be dead. For the 2003 series, the rivalry was between Hamato Yoshi and his friend Yukio Mashimi. Hamato and Yukio were orphans raised as brothers, but Yukio later joined the nefarious Foot Clan, making the Shredder his new master. Yukio then attacked Hamato's wife, Tang Shen, in a jealous rage after he proclaimed his love for her, but to no avail. The battle was witnessed through the eyes of Splinter, whose life was spared during the altercation, though Tang Shen's was not. Afterwards, Hamato struck down his friend Yukio and fled with Splinter to New York, where he later crossed paths with Shredder and was also murdered. So Shredder's desire to destroy Splinter and the Turtles was more rooted in their constant interference of his plan to rule the city, and obviously there was some resentment towards Shredder for killing Splinter's owners. Ninja dynamics. The character dynamics within the group have pretty much remained the same over the years. Heck, they spelled it out for us in the old theme song. Leonardo leads, Donatello does machines, Raphael is cool but rude, and Michelangelo is a party dude. In the original, each turtle had their own defining characteristics, complete with a custom weapon. But for the most part, the group always operated as a whole, with little individuality among them, aside from the color of their masks. Starting with the 2003 revival, the turtles are shown to be far more introspective, and this continues with the Nickelodeon reboot, which also shines more light on each turtle individually. The core of their personalities remains the same, but the turtles are now complex. There's layers to their personality, along with different personal goals and perspectives, and for the first time, we actually have stories that explore these feelings rather than just mention them in passing. Some notable improvements include Raph, unlike his former more lighthearted self, now has far more edge beyond the occasional comic relief full of one-liners. A rebel to the rules, he punches first and asks questions never. Raph is angry, brash, and sarcastic. He struggles with his temper and he's quick to challenge the leadership skills of his brother Leo and tease the heck out of Mikey. Leonardo is no longer the confident teacher's pet. He struggles with the responsibilities of leadership on his path of self-discovery and wisdom. He's the diplomat, learning to control his emotions and make decisions for the greater good, but he's very upfront about his feelings of inadequacy. As a result, he's more prone to cave into his brother's reckless ideas. Donnie no longer falls to the wayside of the group, only chiming in when he has something smart to say. He's much more in the mix now, as he's not afraid to be his own machine and make his own decisions regardless of what the group thinks. Although machines have always been his focus, they're now his whole world, even before ninjutsu. He's ambitious and analytical, but even if he didn't have all that tech, he'd still save the day with nothing more than a stick. Mikey maintains a childlike innocence and complete admiration for his brothers. He's often clueless, but not afraid to ask questions or make assumptions, regardless of how absurd they are. He focuses on his hobbies like cooking, skateboarding, and coming up with more cool nicknames outside of ninjutsu training. I'd say out of the bunch, he's definitely the most like a real teen. Over the years, the focus has shifted onto Mikey as the official comic relief, making him the silliest turtle in every version of the franchise out there. Splinter is now just as much of a father figure to the turtles as he is a sensei. His love for them is made much more apparent with the rules like look both ways before crossing the street, or even the classic never talk to strangers and everyone is a stranger. He's also more involved with their day-to-day lives rather than minding his own ninja business, unless it's time for ninja business, in which case he ninjas hard. April O'Neil and Casey Jones. These are two characters that have changed tremendously throughout the years on their television screen. In the 1987 toon, April O'Neil started out as a daring news reporter working for the Channel 6 news team, always on the hunt for the next big story. She got wise to Shredder's goons running the city, and they chased her down to the sewers, where she was rescued by the Ninja Turtles. The two of them form an alliance based on shared intel, which later blossoms into friendship. The 2003 version of April starts with her as an assistant to Baxter Stockman. That relationship is short-lived, and she later reopens and runs her father's antique shop. Again, this is an accurate representation of April's first incarnation with the Mirage comics. She definitely considers herself as more of a personal friend to the Turtles, acting as an older sister in many ways. However, this does alter the storyline significantly in that it cuts all previous ties between the Turtles and the Channel 6 news team, which means no Vernon, no Irma, and definitely no loudmouth bosses by the name of Bern Thompson. Nickelodeon's edition featured an all-new version of April O'Neil that's never been done before in any other previous form of media throughout the history of the franchise. They aged her down to, well, a teenager. The Turtles still save her life, but she's actually their teenage counterpart, who eventually trains to fight alongside them in the war against Shredder and Krang after they enslave her father. She's also far more headstrong than her 1987 version, more opinionated, fiery, and down-to-earth, whereas the 1987 April would only talk about her work and not much else. As far as Casey Jones is concerned, he didn't really have a huge role in the classic 80s cartoons, not like he does in the franchise as a whole. Casey's story was kept simple. He was an unstable vigilante with a dirty, hairy persona. He fought low-level criminals for the heck of it, like gang members, street punks, and even people who litter too much. Every now and then, his path would cross with the Turtles and they'd team up against the bad guys. Then in 2003, his true story was revealed, which was a personal vendetta against the street gang, the Purple Dragons. He was still angry and slightly unstable, but less crazy as a whole, and a lot more motivated in his actions. Of course, Nickelodeon's version instilled the character with more purpose, but it's a big jump from what Eastman and Laird had initially envisioned. Now he's an angsty teen around the Turtles' age, but possibly a few years older. The rest of his story matches up nicely with the new series. He's still irrational, and his idea of crime-fighting attire is casual wear and sports equipment, but all in all, he's still a pretty good fighter and a great asset to the Turtles team. Krang and the Shredder. For most of the entire original series, Krang and the Shredder were the main antagonists on the show. The two had an alliance which started off with resentment towards one another, but eventually blossomed into a beautiful friendship between evil geniuses. Krang was an alien overlord from Dimension X that had been banished to our world, where his path crossed with Shredder, a ninja master hell-bent on revenge and world domination. Krang lent his alien technology to Shredder in exchange for a replacement body, and together the two focused most of their efforts towards repowering Krang's mobile fortress and base of operations, called the Technodrome. In 2003, the focus stayed on Shredder's takeover of the city by means of the Foot Clan and the Purple Dragon Street Gang. This was the first animated series to introduce the Purple Dragons as well as human foot soldiers, rather than strictly footbots. There was alien interference, but it wasn't Krang. In fact, this is the one animated series without Krang, although there was a cameo appearance from Krang in the episode Secret Origins Part 3. Instead, Shredder was an alien serving as the only bad apple among a peaceful race known as the Ultrons, who were hidden on Earth, protected by an elite group of ninjas named Order of the Guardians, from which Hamato Yoshi hailed. In the 2012 reboot, the city's fallen victim to a group of alien invaders by the name of the Krang. So instead of there just being one Krang, there's several throughout the city referred to as the Krang Army, and much like the original alien villain, they hide within human exosuits. Once Shredder catches wind of of the invaders, he forms an alliance with the Krang leader, Krang Prime, to destroy the Turtles. In this version, Krang is more bent on world domination rather than dominating multiple dimensions, as his plan involves unleashing the mutant gene upon the city to make it more suitable for his race. Of course, Krang is only the focus for about 3 seasons before more otherworldly threats are introduced. TV and feature films. In 1990, the Turtles hit the big screen with their first feature-length film, and it was a massive success. The film became the highest-grossing independent film of all time, and so it came as no surprise when 2 sequels followed right after, Secret of the Ooze in 1991 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 in 1993. The film stuck closely to the plot of the first comic series, with added elements from the cartoon and totally awesome puppet suits created by Jim Henson himself. This wasn't the last time we'd see the pizza-loving puppet. Picking up where the movies left off was an actual live-action television series in 1997 called The Next Mutation that followed the events of the first 3 films and was supposedly based on a 4th film that was going to be released of the same name. Many changes took place in this timeline, including alternate weapons for the Turtles and the addition of a 5th turtle, the long-lost sister Venus de Milo. Then lean green fighting machines returned to the big screen in 2007 with a newly computer-animated TMNT featuring a renowned cast of characters such as Chris Evans, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Kevin Smith, and the late Mako Iwamatsu, making TMNT his final film. Ultimately, the film received mixed reviews. It managed to satisfy the fans' fix, but left something to be desired. In 2009, the Saturday morning cartoon lineup received a made-for-TV movie entitled Turtles Forever, which served as a series finale to the 7th season. The film follows the 2003 Turtle team as they encounter their 1987 cartoon selves, as well as their Mirage Comics counterpart in a multi-dimensional mix-up of epic proportions. The film not only features a compilation of all Turtle incarnations, but also the villains they face throughout the franchise in a true fandom fantasy come to life. Then cue in the latest additions to the franchise, Nickelodeon's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, first premiering in 2014, and the sequel Out of the Shadows in 2016. The fact that these were the first TMNT films produced by some major production companies, Nickelodeon Films, Platinum Dunes, and distributed by Paramount to be exact, marked a new milestone for the franchise, and as such, Nickelodeon started over with a clean slate, rewriting most of the characters' backstories and plots. Still, they involved many aspects of the original cartoon that other films left behind, such as Vernon, the Turtle Van, Baxter Stockman, Carrie, and Krang. As usual, along with the new polish came all new designs for the Turtles, making them mean, massive mutant ninjas. It was considered a gritty makeover from the previous small, rounder designs. The first film grossed just under $500 million worldwide and was estimated to be the 15th most successful film of 2014, which definitely made it the most successful of the franchise. So there you have it, Turtle fanatics. That's all for this video, but not all for the Turtles. Nickelodeon said the franchise will be mutating once more with yet another reboot, and this one will be revisiting the 2D roots of the Turtles in the fall of 2018. Yes! Share your thoughts on the TMNT franchise in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to channel Frederator, because we have videos dropping every day. Hit the bell icon to become part of the notification squad, and remember, Frederator loves you.